A few years ago, I was 32, and I really wanted to escape my busy life as a software engineer. I thought a camping trip with friends would be a good idea. We went to a remote campsite surrounded by tall pine trees and a bubbling creek. It felt peaceful, and I hoped it would help me relax. I remember feeling really hopeful about the trip. On the second night, a fierce thunderstorm rolled in. I still remember the wind picking up as we huddled around the campfire. The rain started falling hard. The whole atmosphere changed. I felt this strange charge in the air. I looked around and saw a dark shape between the trees. I straightened up, confused. I pointed it out to my friends, but they laughed it off. "You're just imagining things," they said. I wanted to believe them, but I couldn't shake that feeling. As hours went by and the storm raged on, odd things started happening. I realized some of our gear was missing, a flashlight for one. My stomach dropped. We joked about it at first, but then unease settled over us. I swear I heard something, a voice maybe. It echoed from the woods. I told my friends, but they just shrugged, trying to lighten the mood. My heart raced, and with each crack of thunder, I felt colder. The whispers grew louder. They drifted on the wind, like they were coming from deep in the forest. I looked at my friends. Their faces were tense. We could all feel it. I knew we were being watched. Shadows flickered at the edge of my vision, and I couldn't tell if it was the storm or something else entirely. I felt close to losing it. Finally, I decided to step away from the fire for fresh air. I stood alone, peering into the dark. Time lost meaning. Suddenly, a chill ran down my spine. I saw that dark shape again, motionless among the trees. My heart pounded. I felt its gaze. Panic set in, and I called for my friends. But when they came, there was nothing there. My voice was shaky, and I felt foolish. Was it all in my head? We packed up the next day. I carried that feeling home with me. Even now I can still hear those whispers and see those shadows flitting around, that dark shape. It felt like something lurking in the woods. I think about it all the time. Something didn't want us there that night. As I sit here now, remembering the storm, I can't shake those memories. They haunt me. I still feel an unease creeping into my chest. Whatever was there, it was real. Then, just as I settled back in, I heard the faintest whisper again. "You shouldn't have come." The word sent a cold chill down my spine. I thought I was free of it, but I now know I can never escape. The next few weeks dragged on, but I couldn't let go of that trip. I returned to my work, but my mind wandered back to the campsite. Whispers filled my thoughts, creeping in whenever I least expected it. Every rustle outside my window made me jump. I started to lose sleep, convinced I would see that dark shape again. One evening, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. I slipped into the park near my neighborhood, hoping the familiar sounds of kids playing and the rustle of leaves would calm me. But even there, I felt the weight of the forest from that night. It loomed in my mind. As the sun set and shadows grew, I hurried home. That night I woke up to a scratching sound coming from my window. My heart raced as I lay still, listening. It felt like the forest had come alive, reaching out to me. I gathered the courage to peek, and there was nothing, just the dark outline of trees against the moonlight. I exhaled shakily, telling myself it was just my imagination. But then I heard it again. Not scratching this time, but something like a soft voice. It said my name. I bolted upright, pulse racing. No one was supposed to know I was alone. I stumbled out of bed, glancing around to calm myself. My phone was on the bedside table. Maybe I could call someone, but the voice lingered in my ears, pulling me to the window. Against my better judgment, I approached the pane, hesitating before pulling the drapes aside, and then it hit me. My gaze fell on the ground below, where something reflected the moonlight. It was the corner of a familiar item, my missing flashlight from the camping trip. I knew it was the same one. I had marked it with a small scratch. How was it here? Goosebumps formed on my arms. I grabbed my shoes, urgency taking over. I needed to see if it was real. I rushed downstairs, heart pounding louder than ever. I opened the front door and stepped outside, scanning the area. The flashlight lay a few feet from my porch, almost taunting me. As I picked it up, I felt a chill in the air. A moment later, I heard twigs snap behind me. I turned, straining to see through the dense bushes lining my yard. In the dim light, I thought I saw a figure standing there, partially concealed in the darkness. My breath was caught in my throat. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaky. No response. Just silence. The only sound was my heartbeat. I took a step forward, but the moment I did, the figure vanished. It was as if the night swallowed it whole. Confusion flooded me. Was it real? Had I imagined it? I backed away, clutching the flashlight tightly. Then I remembered the whispers from the woods, each one more urgent than the last. Something was still out there, watching me. I stormed back inside, locking the door behind me. I had to know more. I needed answers about what had happened in the woods, but I could feel the tension rising again. There was no escaping this feeling. Something was about to intersect my past once more, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. The next morning, I woke up with heavy eyelids and a stomach full of knots. The flashlight sat on my bedside table, a constant reminder of the strange happenings. I toyed with the idea of telling someone about it, but who would understand? Everyone had a life. They wouldn't be bothered by my fears. I decided to visit Jake, my old friend who had been on the camping trip with me. Maybe talking about it would ease my mind. I drove over to his house, my heart racing as I considered what to say. I parked in front of his small brick home and walked up to the door. It felt like I was dragging my feet. Every step was heavy with dread. Jake opened the door, his eyes bright and welcoming. "Hey, long time no see," he said, but I couldn't return his smile. "Can we talk?" I asked, the tension in my voice undeniable. He nodded, motioning me inside. We settled on his couch, and I took a deep breath. "Do you remember that camping trip?" I started. As I recounted the details, the unease I felt returned, pulling at my insides. "Yeah, it was wild. I still can't believe we got lost," he said with a chuckle. But then I noticed the shadow cross his face. "You think it was really as scary as we said?" I leaned closer. "It's not about that. Ever since we got back, I've been feeling watched. And last night I found my flashlight in my yard. That's not normal, right?" A flicker of concern washed over him. "That's weird. Did you leave it behind? Maybe someone returned it." "No, I didn't. I thought I'd lost it for good." I hesitated, but I needed to spill everything. "And last night I heard a voice. It said my name." His expression hardened. "What voice?" "I don't know," I stammered. But it was soft, almost like a whisper. "I thought I saw someone, Jake." He stood up, pacing the small living room. "Okay, calm down. Maybe you're just stressed from the trip." But the more he spoke, the more I felt a knot form around my gut. I didn't believe that. "You can't dismiss this. Something happened out there. I just know it." Jake stopped pacing and looked at me. "Okay, let's think this through. What if we go back to the campsite? Maybe we can piece together what happened." His suggestion struck me with a mix of hope and fear. "You really think that's a good idea? Isn't it better than waiting for something to happen?" I hesitated, the image of the figure in my yard flashing in my mind, but deep down I knew I couldn't keep running from this. "You're right. We need to face it." As I left his house, a chill raced down my spine. I hadn't just agreed to go back to the campsite, I was leaping into the unknown. Something awaited us there, and whether it would bring answers or more questions, I couldn't tell. That night, as darkness enveloped the town, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being lured back to where the whispers began, and somewhere in that dark woods, something was still waiting for me. The next morning, Jake and I met at the diner. I sipped my coffee, hoping the caffeine would clear the fog in my mind, but my nerves were still frayed. "When do you want to head out to the campsite?" I asked between sips. "Let's go now. The sooner we figure this out, the better," he replied, determination set in his voice. We drove toward the woods where we had camped, each mile amplifying my racing heart. The trees closed in around the road, their branches entwined like grasping hands. The sun fought against the dark clouds that had begun to gather. "It looks like rain," Jake said, glancing at the sky. "Could add to the creepy vibe." "Great," I muttered. The unease settled in my stomach again, gnawing away as we pulled into the clearing. The campsite looked different in the daylight, familiar yet foreign, as if nature had reclaimed it since our last visit. "I can't believe we're doing this," I whispered as we stepped out of the car. The distant rustle of leaves and the chirp of birds created an eerie counterpoint to the ominous feeling in my chest. "Let's check the area where we set up our tents," Jake suggested, leading the way. I followed, scanning the tree line and the ground for signs of the past. Was it too late to turn back? I felt a shudder run through me. As we approached the old campsite, I spotted something on the ground, a glint of metal. "Jake, over here!" I called, crouching down to inspect it. It was my pocket knife, the one I thought I'd lost during the trip. "How did this get here?" Jake picked it up, turning it over in his hands. "Weird. It's like we left our ghosts behind." I swallowed hard, my gaze shifting to the trees. Maybe they're still here. A gust of wind rustled the leaves, and I felt a chill creep over my skin. "Let's keep moving," I said, my voice barely a whisper. As we walked deeper into the woods, shadows danced around us, and the air thickened with tension. Just then, I heard it again, a soft, barely audible whisper. My blood ran cold. "Did you hear that?" I stopped, scanning the surroundings. "Hear what?" Jake replied, his brow furrowed. "There was a voice," I insisted, glancing back at the path we'd taken. An unsettling feeling permeated the air, making me want to run. "Okay, let's go back to the clearing," Jake said. "We need to stick together." I nodded, but as we turned, the whispers grew louder, intertwining with the sound of the wind. "It sounds like—" I paused, my breath hitching. "It sounds like my name." "Heather." Jake looked at me, his eyes wide with concern. "What the hell?" Then everything went silent. The woods felt like they were holding their breath, and my heart began to race. I turned, bracing myself for whatever might come next. That's when I saw it, a figure standing just beyond the trees, shrouded in shadow, watching us. "Run!" I screamed, a primal instinct kicking in. We sprinted back the way we came, fear propelling us forward as the whispers crescendoed, echoing my name. I didn't care about the rain or the dark. All that mattered was getting away from whatever was stalking us in those woods. The unknown was no longer just a feeling. It had become a tangible presence, and it was hungry for more. We dashed through the trees, the underbrush snagging at our clothes and ankles. I could hear my breath coming in ragged gasps, but the whispers were louder now, swirling around us like a storm. "Jake, keep going!" I shouted, not daring to look back. The figure was close. I could feel it. We broke into the clearing, the open space barely offering comfort. Rain began to fall, a soft drizzle at first. Then it slammed against us, drenching us in seconds. The dark clouds overhead deepened, echoing my own sense of dread. "What was that?" Jake panted, glancing over his shoulder, scanning the tree line. "I don't know," I cried, frantically searching for any sign of the presence we'd felt. But all I saw were the shadows of trees, backlit by flashes of lightning. Jake looked down, his face pale. "We need to call for help." "Do you have your phone?" I asked, my voice trembling. He fished it out of his pocket, but the screen was shattered and unresponsive. "Great," he muttered, frustration mixing with fear. Another flash of lightning illuminated the woods, and for a split second I saw it again. The figure, only this time it was closer. I gasped, feeling my stomach drop. It was tall, too tall, its limbs elongated and unnatural. "Jake!" I shrieked, gripping his arm. "We can't stay here." "There's a cabin not far from here," he said, urgency lacing his words. "We can make it." We took off again, my legs pumping as adrenaline surged. The rain poured down, slicking the ground and making every step riskier. My heart pounded in my chest, drowning out the whispers that still echoed behind us. Just as we approached where the cabin should be, the path forked. One direction led deeper into the woods, the other to what looked like a larger clearing. I stopped, my breath hitching. Which way? Jake looked in both directions, his face twisted in confusion. I don't know." Before I could direct us, another flash of lightning struck, revealing the figure standing right at the fork. I could see it more clearly now, a face void of features, just pale skin stretched over a hollow shell. "Run!" I screamed again, my instincts kicking in. We bolted down the path to the clearing. I glanced back, and to my horror, the figure shifted, gliding smoothly across the ground, closing the distance between us. "Keep going!" Jake yelled, his voice filled with urgency. The clearing opened up, surrounded by dense trees with what looked like remnants of old structures scattered throughout. I scanned the area, desperate for somewhere to hide. That's when I spotted it, a dilapidated shed nearly hidden by overgrown vines and debris. "Over there!" I pointed, and Jake nodded, sprinting toward the shed. We reached it just as the relentless whispers reached a fever pitch, filling my ears with chaos. Inside, the smell of damp wood and mildew hit us hard. We crouched low, peering through a crack in the door. The figure had stopped at the edge of the trees, hesitating. I held my breath, my heart racing. It seemed to be searching for us, shifting slowly as if trying to sense our presence. "Why is it just standing there?" Jake whispered, his voice barely audible over the storm. I shook my head, terrified. "I don't know." The whispers faded slightly, and I felt the eerie heaviness of silence settle again. But I could still feel it, an unseen weight pressing against us, ready to pounce. Suddenly the figure turned its head, and I felt its gaze pierce through the shed walls. I staggered back, panic surging in my chest. What did it want? Then I heard something new, a voice emerging from the silence. Not a whisper, but a low, guttural sound that filled the air around us. It was calling my name. "Jake, it knows I'm here," I stammered, fear gripping me. "Don't move," he urged, grabbing my arm tightly. But it was too late. The figure began to move toward us, gliding out of the shadows, and I knew we were running out of time. We had to make a choice, and fast. Should we stay hidden, or risk everything to escape? The sounds of the storm blurred around us, but the rising threat became crystal clear. Something was coming, and it wanted us. The silence hung thick around us as we crouched in the shed. I could feel the dampness seeping through my clothes, but all I could think about was the thing outside, the way it glided, almost like it didn't belong to our world. Jake squeezed my arm tighter. "We can't just wait for it to find us," he whispered. His eyes darted nervously to the crack in the door. "What if it's waiting for us to make a move?" His words sent another wave of dread crashing over me. "Then what do we do? We'll just be sitting ducks in here." He opened his mouth to respond, but then I heard it again. The guttural noise. This time it was closer. It echoed off the walls of the shed, a haunting sound that wrapped around me like a cold shroud. I didn't dare move. "Stay quiet." Jake's voice was steady, even as he trembled beside me. The figure was no longer just an outline among the trees. It was in the clearing, moving deliberately. The darkness cloaked it, but with each flash of lightning I could see the pale skin that stretched across its hollow face, that dreadful expressionless stare. "Jake," I breathed, my voice quaking. "If it knows my name, maybe it knows something else." "Like what?" he asked. "Like where we are?" "Like—" Suddenly there was a loud bang from outside, like a tree falling, and we jumped. "What was that?" I hissed, my heart racing. "I don't know," Jake replied, his eyes wide. "But I think it's moving again." The figure turned, its head tilting slightly. A flash of lightning illuminated it further, and this time I could see it clearer. Its limbs were too long, too thin, almost like branches swaying in the wind. I felt sick. Then, without warning, it darted toward us, gliding with inhuman speed. I fell back, pushing myself against the wall. "Jake!" I screamed. Just then the door of the shed creaked. Was it the wind? Or was it the figure playing with us, testing its prey? I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. "We can't stay here," I squeaked. Before I could think, I opened the door a crack, peering out. The rain pounded down, but the figure had vanished. It was as if it melted into the shadows. "Where is it?" Jake asked, urgency creeping back into his voice. I shook my head, trembling. "I don't know. We need to get out of here, now." Without another thought, we pushed through the door, the cold rain slapping against our faces, the clearing twisted with shadows, concealing everything around us. "Which way?" I panted, scanning the area for a safe route. "There, toward the old trees." Jake pointed, urgency flooding his eyes. Just as we started to run, I felt something brush against my back. I spun around just in time to see the figure reappear behind me, its ghastly face illuminated in another flash of lightning. It was closer, too close. In that moment of pure terror, the ground beneath us cracked open, revealing what looked like a deep, dark pit. I stumbled back, heart racing as I turned to Jake. "That can't be good!" he shouted, panic lacing his voice. We were cornered. The figure advanced toward us, its movements both mesmerizing and horrifying. I needed an escape route, something, anything, and then I saw it. A faint glimmer beneath the downpour. Another shed, maybe a cabin, just a few yards away. "Over there!" I screamed, urgency propelling me forward. We sprinted, but as I ran, I could feel the presence closing in from behind. The whispers became shouts, clawing at my mind. We were out of time. Diving toward the cabin, I flung the door open, urgency coursing through me. I rushed inside as another bolt of lightning struck. This time, I was ready. The cabin was dark and musty, the air thick with the smell of wet wood. I slammed the door behind us, locking it with a shaky hand. Jake leaned against the wall, gasping for breath, his expression wild. "Did it see us?" I could still hear the faint ringing in my ears from our sprint. I don't know," I stuttered. Every moment felt stretched. The pounding rain created a chaotic symphony outside, but the silence inside hung heavy, waiting. Jake moved closer to the small window, peeking through the grime-riddled glass. "It should be out there, right? It has to be," he whispered, but uncertainty loosened his grip on optimism. All at once I remembered the pit. My stomach dropped. "What if it can sense us?" I said, shivering at the thought. "I just want to get out of here," he muttered, a desperate look crossing his face. "Getting out could be worse." I paced the floor, racking my brain for options. "We need to figure out what that thing is and why it's after us." Then, something caught my eye on the far wall. A piece of furniture stood shrouded in shadows. As I approached, I realized it was an old bookshelf, stacked with dusty, weathered books. A flicker of hope ignited in me. There had to be something useful, maybe a clue. I started to pull a book from the shelf, but it felt heavier than expected. I pulled harder, and the shelf creaked ominously. "Help me!" I called over my shoulder. Jake hurried over, and together we yanked the book free. Dust flew into the air, causing us to cough. There was a hidden compartment behind it, revealing a small, leather-bound journal. The title read, "The Watcher of the Woods." My heart raced. "What does it say?" Jake asked, peering over my shoulder. I flipped it open, my fingers shaking. The handwriting was frenzied, as if written in a panic. It spoke of a creature that preyed on fear, a being that could mimic voices and blend into the environment. It knows what you're afraid of," I read aloud, my voice trembling. "What does that mean for us?" Jake asked, his face pale. I thought of the figure again, how it moved and how it might know our secrets. "It uses fear to draw you in," I continued. "It can make you hear things, see things that aren't there. If it knows our fears, it might know everything, Jake whispered, backing away from the bookshelf. A sudden loud bang on the cabin's door made us jump. "It's trying to get in," Jake shouted, his eyes wide with terror. "Stay quiet," I urged, my heart pounding in my ears. The sound came again, sharp and insistent. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered and died, plunging us into a black void. My breathing quickened, panic rising within me. What do we do? I felt around for something, anything. The journal slipped from my hands and fell to the floor, pages flipping wildly. A gust of wind rattled the cabin, and whispers echoed through the dark, chilling me to the bone. That's when I heard it, a voice, low and twisted, creeping through the shadows. "Why are you afraid?" My stomach dropped. I froze, sweat trickling down my back. The whisper curled around me like smoke, and instinct shouted for me to run. But my feet felt glued to the ground. "Just stay calm," Jake whispered, his voice quaking. "It's just in our heads, right? Just the dark." But it didn't feel like just the dark. The air around us thickened. The very atmosphere seemed to pulse. The whispers grew louder, spiraling into the air like a storm closing in. "Why are you afraid?" came the voice again, chillingly familiar. It was as if it knew us, like it was challenging our own shadows. "Jake," I finally managed to say, my throat dry, "if it can see us in the dark, what do we do?" "Maybe if we can keep quiet, it will go away," he suggested. It was half-hearted, more of a wish than a plan. We both held our breath. I could hear the steady patter of the rain outside morph into a roar, matched by the heartbeat thrumming in my ears. Time felt suspended, the seconds stretching long and infinitely. Then I noticed the journal. The leather cover shimmered in the scant moonlight filtering through the window. As if it was alive, it beckoned me, urging me to see what else it held. "Wait," I said, breaking the silence. "Maybe this has more answers." Jake's eyes darted around the room. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" I didn't know, but fear compelled me forward. I reached down to grab the journal, my fingertips brushing against the pages. They were warm, as if they had absorbed some of the cabin's growing tension. I flipped through them, frantically searching for something, anything. The words blurred together until one sentence stood out stark against the others. "It feeds on their fear, amplifying it until it crumbles." A horrible realization washed over me. "Jake, it's not just trying to scare us, it wants to break us." Before he could respond, a loud crash erupted from outside, rattling the cabin. The door shuddered under the impact, splinters flying from the aging wood. "Run!" Jake screamed, leaping toward the back window. I followed, scrambling to my feet, dread pooling in my stomach. We reached the window, but it was nailed shut, completely immovable against our desperate strength. "It's trapped us!" I cried, panic rising sharply in my throat. Another crash echoed, closer this time. "We can't just stay here!" Jake pleaded, slamming his fists against the window. "We have to fight." "Fight what?" I snapped. My mind raced, piecing together everything I'd read in the journal. It felt impossibly strong, invincible, feeding off our fear. Then a shadow loomed outside the door. A dark figure, indistinct but pulsating with an energy that chilled my bones. "That's it," I whispered, realization hitting me hard. "It's not just a monster, it's a reflection of us." "The things we fear the most," Jake breathed, his voice trembling. Before we could contemplate what that meant, the door burst open, flinging splinters everywhere. The creature stood in the doorway, a dark shape that twisted and writhed like living darkness. "Do you want to know why you're afraid?" Its voice filled the cabin, an echo of our own insecurities. I took a step back, the words slamming into me like a frigid wave. "What do we do?" I choked out. That's when the darkness surged forward, reaching for us. I couldn't breathe. The darkness enveloped us, tendrils snaking around my ankles, trying to pull me down. I fought against it, falling back a few steps, and caught a glimpse of Jake. His face was a mask of terror as he tried to dodge the swirling mass. "Jake, we need to focus. Remember the journal," I shouted, trying to tear my gaze from the nightmare advancing toward us. He nodded, his eyes wide as the creature loomed larger. "It's us. It's our fear," he murmured, almost to himself, as if saying it out loud would make it less real. I reached for the journal, my trembling hands fumbling as I opened it again. It said we have to confront it. We can't let it win. Jake swallowed hard, steeling his posture. "Confront it? How?" "Together," I replied, feeling a flicker of determination ignite in my chest. "What are we afraid of, really?" The creature paused, its dark form undulating as if it were listening. "You know," it whispered, circling us like a predator. "All your doubts, your failures, they're all real." I clenched my fists, recalling the moments that haunted me, the times I felt unworthy, the mistakes I had made. "You're wrong. It's just fear. I won't give in," I shouted, my voice breaking through the oppressive weight of its presence. Jake took a step forward, his resolve hardening. "And I won't either. We know what you are. You don't control us." With that, the atmosphere shifted. The darkness seemed to hesitate, recoiling slightly. Instinctively, I sensed we had hit a nerve. "What's wrong? Are you afraid to face the truth?" The creature spat, its voice now fraying at the edges. Something flickered inside me, a memory of the people I'd let down, a moment of weakness. But I pushed it back, focusing on the strength that had also taken root over the years. "We won't let you define us." The shadows shuddered, and with each strong word we spoke they seemed to dim. "This isn't just fear, it's a fight," I said, rallying myself. "Let's find a way to take our power back, Jake." "I'm with you," he shouted, and together we faced the creature head-on. Suddenly, shadows writhed and lashed out, swirling in chaos. I felt a pulse of energy from the journal as our fears clashed against its darkness. I flipped to the page about facing one's fears, letting the words wash over us like armor. "Fear is nothing without your belief," I read aloud, and as I spoke I felt something shift. The creature screamed, a piercing sound that rattled the cabin. With every syllable, it shrank back. "Keep going," Jake encouraged. I urged the words forth, spilling them out like a lifeline. "We are stronger than our fears. We choose to confront and rise above." But just as hope flickered in my chest, a surge of darkness poured forth, stronger than before. "You're not supposed to know this," it screeched, and the room spun wildly. That's when I saw it, a glimpse of something in the corner, a shimmering light fighting against the shadows. "Jake, over there," I pointed. "We have to reach it." We dashed toward the glowing figure emerging from the chaos, realizing it was a path out. But the darkness writhed, rebuffing us, determined to keep us bound. As we charged forward, I felt the walls closing in, but I couldn't stop. The light flickered, wavering as we neared. "It's our only hope," I cried. Then, with a final push against the monstrous shadow, everything went white. I stumbled, the world around me fading to a blinding brightness. Just as quickly, the light receded, leaving me breathless and disoriented. I found myself lying on a familiar patch of grass, at the campsite. The storm had vanished, and an unsettling calm settled over the area, contrasting sharply with the chaos only moments before. "Jake," I croaked, pushing myself up onto my elbows and scanning the surroundings. The campsite felt eerily normal. The faint gurgle of the creek, a soothing reminder of what was supposed to be a peaceful getaway. I looked around, the trees swaying gently in the breeze, but the threat was gone. I felt it in my bones, as if the weight of the darkness had lifted. "Over here!" I heard Jake's voice call out from behind me. I turned to find him sitting against a pine tree, his expression dazed. "What happened?" he asked, rubbing his temples. I ran over, my heart still racing. We faced it. I remember it screamed, and then there was this light. I thought we were finished." "I thought so too," he murmured, glancing around. "But look at us, we're back." It felt surreal. My heartbeat began to slow, a sense of relief momentarily washing over me, but as I took in the familiar sights of the campsite, the friends I had come with, and the echoes of laughter that seemed to linger in the air, an unsettling thought crept into my mind. "What if it's not done?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. The memories of the whispers, the figure, and the darkness tangled in my mind like a web. Jake looked at me, confusion on his face. "What do you mean?" "It was feeding on our fear. All of this, it could happen again." I could still feel the cold clutches of that presence hanging like a spectre in the periphery of my thoughts. Was it truly gone, or was it just waiting to return? "I don't want to think about it," he replied, rubbing a hand across his face. "Maybe it's over. We faced it. Isn't that enough?" "Maybe," I said softly. "But it's not just that. You heard it say my name. What if it knows more about us than we realized?" We stood up, examining the remnants of our campsite, the signs of our previous panic lingering in the air like a heavy fog. I shivered involuntarily, the sunlight feeling too bright, too open. Jake tried to lighten the mood. "Well, at least we have some stories to tell, right?" I forced a laugh, but inside an unshakable discomfort festered. I couldn't shake the feeling that we hadn't seen the last of it. The whispers still echoed faintly in my mind, as if taunting me from a distance, and the memories of that hollow face surfaced uninvited. As we began to gather our things, I couldn't help but glance back at the tree line, an instinctual caution pinching at my heart. For a moment I thought I saw a flicker of movement just beyond the trees, a shadow slipping between the trunks. I blinked, but it was gone. "Come on, let's get out of here," Jake urged, sensing my unease. I nodded, trying to shake off the vague feeling of being watched. As we drove away from the campsite, I felt a strange mixture of relief and lingering dread. The car sped down the winding road, the familiar landscape blurring past, but the questions remained. Was it really over? What had we truly faced out there? I glanced at Jake, who stared blankly ahead, lost in his own thoughts. Perhaps we had won this battle, but the war felt far from over. I looked back out the window one last time, half expecting to see that shadow lurking among the trees, watching us drive away. I moved to a different city after that, and I keep hoping the whispers fade, but every so often they creep back in. I wonder what was real and what wasn't. Was it just our minds playing tricks on us, or was something truly out there? The unease settled deeper within me, a reminder that sometimes monsters lurk in the shadows of our own fears. But for now the daylight was all I had, and it was enough, until the next storm rolled in.